around the idea of state unilateralism. So please join me to welcome our speakers. The first one we have Professor I Gusti Ngurah Parikesit Widya Teja SH M.Hum LLM PhD. The second we have Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Hazmi Muhammad Rusli. The third we have, whom I believe will be joining us shortly, Professor Dr. Andasri Wartini SH M.Hum PhD. And although she may be far from us in another country, but she is close with us, Associate Professor Nguyen Thi Hong Yen PhD from Hanoi, Vietnam. Okay, without further ado, let us start with our first speaker, Professor I Gusti Ngurah Parikesit Widya Teja SH M.Hum LLM PhD, whom I believe because all of us here are bound together under the organization of ISIL, and as Bapak Ibu here have been familiar with, specifically for his besties, Prof. Parikesit may be addressed as Prof. Sigit. Betul, Bapak? Okay. Please allow me to shortly read the biography of Prof. Sigit. Prof. I Gusti Ngurah Parikesit Widya Teja SH M.Hum LLM PhD is the Professor of International Law at Faculty of Law Universitas Udayana in Bali. Prof. Sigit obtained his bachelor degree in law from Universitas Brawijaya, as well as his Magister of Humaniora, also from Universitas Brawijaya. And then he obtained his Masters of Law from the University of Washington, and finally his PhD from the University of Melbourne. Fellow alma mater, Bapak. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have a lengthy list of Prof. Sigit's publication, but it will take us all the way to this evening if I have to read them one by one. So please cue Prof. Sigit to kickstart our international conference this evening. Please, Prof. Sigit, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you so much for the time and opportunity. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Om Swastiastu, Salam, salam kebajikan, salam sehat for all participants. So I would like to say good morning, thank you for your presence, for all colleagues, friends, speakers, and organizing committee for this special occasion. So in this, definitely it is my honor, my privilege to be here in the beautiful city of Yogyakarta, in the beautiful and elegant campus of Faculty of Law, University Islam Indonesia, in the international conference, call for paper, and ISIL annual meeting on the international law under the shadow of state unilateralism, current development. So I'd like to guide you through a journey. The first is to show you about the historical root of U.S. Unilateral trade policy, and then examine the current measure adopted by the U.S. government. Then identify and analyze the legal and systemic impact of international trade law, and try to consider Indonesia's strategic option, especially not just a member of multilateral system, but also a new participant of alliances like BRICS. So international trade, as many of you know, rests on three philosophical pillars. They are mutual benefit, comparative advantage, and interdependence, as famously articulated by Adam Smith and David Ricardo. In the wake of World War II, these ideals were institutionalized through the existence of General Agreement Tariff on Trade and later WTO. The goal was clear: to promote rule-based system, non-discriminatory measures, and predictable global commerce. One of the key framework under this kind of agreement, following Article 26, Vienna Convention of Law of Treaty, is about a good faith. State must respect their commitment, not just in form, but also in spirit, because this is what transforms treaties from just being a piece of paper into a living compact that structure a cooperation. So we can imagine a rule without a good faith become or will be so many loopholes, and agreement can devolve into just instrument of convenience. And in 2025, we see the drastic departure from this norm, where the President of United States, Donald Trump, extended certain tariff policy and imposed so-called reciprocal duties on key trading partners, including Indonesia, 32% at the first, although it's getting decreased up to 90%. And the US always say that this is fairness, although the reality is different. This is actually, I will show you later in this presentation, how they can break is not just agreement establishing of WTO, but also UN Charter, Vienna Convention Law of Treaties, and other related treaties. And this will raise a question about the future of international trade law and how we respond, how we have to have like a strategic realignment in response to the Trump's unilateral tariff policy. So, as also mentioned by the Honorable Deputy Foreign Minister, to understand what is really happening in 2025, we have to place it in context to understand that this is not the first time U.S. trade policy has chosen unilateralism over cooperation. In 1940-something, for example, when U.S. had to design International Trade Organization, but the Congress refused to ratify it, and leaving only the weaker GATT in place. This also happened in 1970-something. This is the first time when the U.S. government introduced the Section 301, enabled them to unilaterally retaliate what was considered as unfair foreign practices. And this happened in around 1978 when Section 301 was imposed to the European community, pasca subsidy. And again, this continued in the next decade in 1980-something when the enhancement of Section 301 of Trade Act, and then it's become Super 301 section, made retaliation mandatory for some countries. This was imposed, for example, in 1989, when the US imposed retaliation against Japanese telecommunication and construction product. And this also continued in 90-something. Although in this decade, in this era, the WTO dispute settlement system was born, but US kept unilateral tool in its domestic legislation. In 1995, for example, under Clinton administration, the US imposed 100% tariff over Japanese luxury car. And in 2000-something, in 2000-something, there is a trend of unilateralism trend to respond about the deadlock of Doha round. And in 2002, if I'm not mistaken, under George W. Bush administration, the US government imposed safeguard tariff, 30% on steel import. Although finally this measure was withdrew due to WTO decision. So this is reflect that, the US preference over unilateralism saw the persistent trend and now become a habit under the Trump, because it's no longer just a backup plan. This is the centerpiece of US trade policy. Bilateral deal, bilateral negotiation, and backed up by economic coercion. This is the key measure that can be divided into four main actions. The first is the extension of tariff expiry deadline. Tariff were supposed to end in July and then extended in 1 August. Although it sound minor, but in international trade law, predictability is everything, and this move has disrupted. And we know the imposition of reciprocal tariff, ranging from 25 until 40% as a matching foreign tariff burden. We also see the imposition of unilateral the tariff, the departure from multilateral dispute resolution, because all the tariffs were imposed without any proper consultation or relying on WTO dispute settlement. And the last one is about the politicization of tariff policy, because some scholars said this is linked more likely to be a geopolitical positioning rather than objective trade defense. So the line between trade law and political leverage blur completely. So what is the impact for international trade law? So I can briefly show at least four dire consequences on international trade law. The first is the violation of tariff commitment under WTO or GATT, because the extended tariff is without any proper consultation. We also have the challenge on the most favored nation and the unilateral invocation of national security exception, because Article 21 of GATT never meant to be domestic routine inspection for economic pressure, but it was invoked globally. And there is a trend of our erosion of multilateralism, because US prefer to conduct bilateral deal, bilateral transactional over multilateralism. So what Indonesia strategy? So this is the last two of my slide. So again, we have to keep using multilateral legal action through the WTO, initiate or join WTO dispute, challenging the US tariff, and we have to collaborate with other countries like Japan, Korea, and Malaysia. We still have to use a formal procedure under WTO. Sometimes we lose like WTO case on raw material, DS 592, but in the last WTO proceeding, we win over the case countervailing duties on biodiesel, DS 618. So it's reflect we still have to use the WTO, and we have to also propose the reform of appellate body under WTO. The second one is, this is a regional coordination through ASEAN, and RCIP need to be enhanced. And one of the good example is when we have agreement on tariff reduction, enabling textile, electronic product to export in Japan and Korea. The third and the new strategy is diversification through bridge. We will deepen bridge trade integration by accelerating negotiation on tariff reduction and mutual market access within the bloc. We also have to expand currency swap arrangement and non-dollar trade settlement within bridge to reduce vulnerability of US-linked financial and trade sanctions. So there is a good example when I think China and Russia trade oil with rupee and rubles, or Brazil and China settling trade, not using US dollar. So this is also a strategy for Indonesia, especially if we have coal, if we have like electronic as our comparative advantage. We have to trade with rupiah maybe or other equivalent currency. The last one is we have also to initiate domestic legal and policy measures. Trade remedy law we have to use. We have experience impose safeguard tariff on, I think, safeguard tariff in textile product to protect domestic industry. We also have a program Indonesian 4.0 to modernize industrial, especially in the food processing and electronic products. So it will endorse our competitiveness in the global market. So all those strategies must be simultaneously done to respond about the current state unilateralism imposed, especially by the US government. So to closing my presentation, Trump unilateral tariff policy is not just another trade dispute. It is a stress test for entire architect of international trade law. For Indonesia, the path forward is clear. Defend our legal right, diversify our legal partnership, adapt strategically while remaining supporter of principle comprehensive, predictive, and integrative trade rule. I think that's all my presentation, and for closing my presentation, I would like to address some pantun, and hopefully it will, losing down the tension, okay? So, watching Justin Hubner playing along Ivar Jenner, flying from city of Manchester to the city of Vancouver. Please always remember and never be surrender. If we stick together, Indonesia will fly better. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Sigit.